Hey everybody, your old buddy Johnny Laing back again 2 times in 1 day, working hard for the money, which is zero money. Okay, everybody knows what's going on. Been getting the local candidates and incumbents in to talk about what they're doing, and that's what we're doing again right this very second. And I have Andy Kuhl, and he is running for Baltimore County Sheriff against old man Fisher. I'm just kidding. We're not trying to push anybody in any direction. But we're going to sit here and listen to what he has to say about what we want to hear, or maybe we don't want to hear, and then what he's going to do to help make our community a better place to live and a safer place to live. And not only that, a place where your personal, individual liberties actually still mean something. So that being said, I'm going to introduce you guys right now to candidate for Baltimore County Sheriff, Andy Kuhl.
Hey, well, thanks for having me on, Johnny. I mean, this is awesome. Anytime I get the chance to speak to the people is like my favorite thing to do, and especially about the sheriff, because no one knows what your sheriff's actually supposed to do. Well, we do have all kinds of documentation. I brought some with me today, and this is County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. This was written by Sheriff Richard Mack, who sued the Clinton administration back in 1997 and won because of unconstitutional gun laws that they were trying to institute. It was called the Brady Bill, and it was forcing the sheriff at that time into a corner to violate his oath by enforcing these unconstitutional laws. And that's like the biggest thing of my platform, is to educate people about what the county sheriff's authority actually is. Because we have all kinds of laws that are passed through the Maryland General Assembly through the first 4 months of every year, and I dare say that 50% of them are unconstitutional. They violate your right to life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness in some kind of way. So the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of his jurisdiction. He's higher than Baltimore County Chief of Police, higher than Maryland State Police. He signs off whether or not the federal agents come into the jurisdiction to conduct an investigation. So with that said, being the chief law enforcement officer, it's also the choice of the sheriff, with the people's backing, to enforce laws or pretended legislations called unconstitutional laws. Like a great example of that is, as I mentioned with the County Sheriff's America's Last Hope, the unconstitutional red flag laws that are passed all the time. And these pretended legislations don't have to be enforced. That's called nullification, when the sheriff intervenes, or actually the term is called interposes, and stands between government and the people to prevent their rights from being violated. So literally, the county sheriff has enough authority, let's say tomorrow, and if Sheriff Fisher did this, you know, I pat him on the back, I clap for him and everything, but we have the Second Amendment. It's very clear. It says you have the right to bear arms, and bear means to keep, to hold, to have on your person, and it shall not be infringed. That means you can't mess with it. It's in the Bill of Rights. This is absolute.
It's been messed with.
Oh, it most certainly has.
For sure.
And society has been tricked into thinking that it's okay to mess with it.
It's back in right now, baby.
It's an inalienable right, but the sheriff has enough authority to tomorrow go, boom, everybody has the right to constitutional carry.
Wow.
And there's so many other unconstitutional laws that are passed that the sheriff should be interposing and standing between government and the people and saying, like, for instance, when I get into office, when I come across these laws, I'm going to appoint a committee. It's going to be called a Constitutional Legislative Review Committee. So that is going to be a bunch of scholars. We're going to sit around a table, and we're going to thumb through every single Maryland law and U.S. federal law as well, because you don't have to enforce federal laws in the state. But we're going to go through every single law and work from the most relevant to the least relevant, and then I'll do a press conference or a press release or something to talk to the people and say, we have found this law to be unconstitutional. People of Baltimore County, what do you want me to do? Right. And then I'll have the people's ear, and then they can say, we want that law, or no, this obviously violates our rights. So that's my broad campaign, is to educate people, one, on what the Constitution is, U.S. Constitution, and we have the Maryland Constitution as well. I don't have a copy of that right now, but that's even more important than the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution has a Bill of Rights. That's the first 10 amendments. And I think probably most of your viewers know that. But the Maryland Constitution has many more articles, but they literally mirror the U.S. Constitution. And even in Declaration 2, or Article 2 of the Maryland Constitution, it says, U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Any laws made in pursuance thereof shall be laws. So if they pass a law in the Maryland General Assembly and it doesn't stick to any of this, it's unconstitutional. It doesn't have to be enforced by the sheriff.
Interesting. I didn't realize that that the sheriff had that broad of powers, which is kind of cool. But you figure that that Sheriff Fitcher would be letting us, just regular folks know about these things. I think that's one of the biggest problems that we're having is these guys that've been hanging around, to collect the paycheck, are just keeping it all the information to themselves, which would help us make better decisions in which to tell them to vote for it. Not that they would.
Yeah, it's a lack of representation. That's the biggest problem. That's why I got into this altogether, is I've reached out to my delegates, all the delegates and senators. I reached out to the governor. I reached out to my county executive.
Terrible.
Yes, absolutely. And, I might have said that if we had a good sheriff on Twitter, his ass would be in jail by now.
That's true.
I might have said that. Go back on your Twitter feed, Johnny. But that lack of representation that we get is what bothered me the most. It's these guys we put into office, or somebody put into office, and I've never really tried to reach out to them before, but I felt like all of our rights were being egregiously violated.
And that's something that, and that's funny. We chatted a little bit beforehand. I didn't want to get too deep into it because I wanted everybody to get a chance, and I know you did too. Yeah. But that's something that is at our disposal at all times. And these people that are elected officials, their job is to help us make sure that our rights aren't violated and that they're not being trampled all over. So it surprises me that you didn't at least get a little bit of satisfaction.
Yeah, I think I got 2 email responses out of, I think we have 180 representatives in Congress in Maryland. So that's not good odds there. It's not a good percentage. So
wow, 2.
Yeah, and like I was saying, it's something that was a catalyst for me to go into this. It's all right, I'm not getting a response here. And then, as I told you guys before, I took my stepdaughter to her first day of first grade. I knew she had the constitutional right, and I had the constitutional right as a parent to say, this is a choice to wear a mask. You have bodily autonomy. It's considered a medical device by the FDA under an EUA, the Emergency Use Authorization. So what business does any state officer or government agency have in saying you have to put a medical device on your face or on her face? So I was like, no, this ain't happening. So months prior to school starting, I sent emails out to the Baltimore County Public Schools, no response. Up until 3 days before school started, that's when I get a response, but it's from the law offices of Baltimore County Public Schools. And they cite this precedent from Illinois in 2021, and it says, quote, you have no constitutional right to not wear a mask. And I was like, I'm calling BS on this. I've never...
That statement just doesn't even make sense.
No, it doesn't at all.
Because you're telling me, and that's one thing that I look, if you want to wear a mask, God bless you, I support you. Don't be trying to force me to do anything like that I don't want to do. As like you said, the whole goddamn thing doesn't make any sense.
It should be a choice. And if your viewers or anybody else watching this, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Don't take someone else's right away because you want to consent in giving their rights up. So that's a big difference there, is what we give away as a people, and we don't recognize these unconstitutional laws. But back to what I was saying before, taking my daughter to school. So I looked up this precedent that they had put on there, and it was a deputy attorney that sent it to me. And I looked through the case, and it wasn't actually a precedent. It wasn't the decision of a case. So it was part of the defense's argument to say you have no constitutional right to not wear a mask. So it was just pervasive influence to say, oh, well, we already covered this and established this, so you don't have a choice. And that's intimidation.
Yeah, 100%.
So we still take her to school on the first day of first grade, and we're walking around the school looking to knock on the door so I can talk to the principal, because I sent her all this stuff, and they had a stack of papers with me like that thing. It was like, I'm going to show you science, I'm going to show you law, I'm going to show you all of this stuff. So like
you did your research.
Yeah, exactly. And when I was moving around the building there, she come out the front door. So I saw her, went up, shook her hand, and I said, Andy Kuhl, and she said, I thought you might be coming. And I just kind of like looked sideways, like, of course I'm coming. My daughter's registered for school here, and we have constitutional right to be here, and she has a constitutional right to not wear a mask. So she said, well, why don't you come over here, and I have somebody you need to talk to. So there's 3 county police standing around the entrance area, and then she takes me over to the Department of School Safety Manager. I've never even heard of this department, so.
What is it? What is it, like a counselor of some kind? Or?
Basically, yeah. There's all these bureaucratic departments that go with the schools. It's another consequence of us not being educated about laws and things. So I'm talking to this lady, and she said, no, but your daughter can't come to school without a mask. It's a policy. I was like, I don't care if it's a policy. I have a constitutional right. And they said, you have to take this up with Baltimore County Public Schools. I said, I already tried that. And then I gave them a copy of the letter that I got 3 days prior. And they were like, well, that's the rule. I was like, well, it's not. So are you going to let my daughter still say no? I said, are you my child's doctor? Are you my child's doctor? Pointing around the horn there, asking if Dr. Williams, the superintendent of Baltimore County Public Schools, is my child's doctor, asking if the school nurse is my child's doctor, and everybody responded no. And I said, well, since we've established that that's a no for everyone, what business do you have prescribing medical advice to my daughter or me as the parent? You don't. That's practicing medicine without a license, don't you think? So these rules, these laws, these consequences didn't seem to affect them whatsoever. So nope, they shoot us away. So, and I knew, and I thought like for a second there, that I was just going to take my daughter into school. But I mean, 6 years old, I was like, I would scar her for life if I dragged her into school.
And started throwing haymakers, knocking out teachers.
And, police, you've seen all the videos of police just jumping on people, especially when they're exercising their rights. So I didn't want to scar my daughter like that. We go back to the house, and we're deciding what to do. And at this point, I already knew all about the county sheriff. So I called the sheriff. I called the office, talked to the secretary, and I run a telegram group too. We got like 300 people in Maryland, patriots all over the state, where we worked on lawsuits, letters to representatives, and all those things. But yeah, so I sent them the message, and they were like, we're calling too, we're going to back you up. So it had to be at least 15, 20 people. They called the sheriff's office as well. So I called up later to follow up, and I say, hey, it's Andy Kuhl again. We got your message, Mr. Kuhl. We got all your friends' messages. The sheriff will call you back. Well, I kept following up for like 2 weeks, and nothing.
No call.
No call at all. So I decided, like, unofficially at that point, that I was going to replace this guy. It was like, he either has no idea what his job is, or he's sandbagging on purpose. And
that's right, only one of two things.
Yeah, I tried to send him all this literature. Tried to send him the Constitution, the One Nation Under God, the County Sheriff's America's Last Hope, and this one's actually a really good one, and this is on my website. Common Law Handbook for Jurors, Sheriffs, Bailiffs, and Justices. Man, is that a healthy read there. But I knew what the sheriff was supposed to do in protecting the constitutional rights of my family, and he failed. He failed miserably. and I met him in person a few months prior to that, and because I was trying to pick his brain. My brother and my friend who teaches the Constitution all around Maryland, he's actually a law enforcement officer, but we all go to the Maryland Sheriff's Association meeting. I bet nobody knows that all the sheriffs in the state get together and they have meetings, and they're all the local chiefs of law enforcement, but most of the time you don't get all of them to show up. There's 24. We have 23 counties and one municipality, which is Baltimore City, but there's a sheriff for each jurisdiction. And we go out to that meeting. It was in Frederick. And at this point, I had tried contacting every single sheriff in the state. And I only got one response, and that was from the sheriff of Frederick County. His name's Chuck Jenkins. Called me on his cell phone. I have his cell phone number. I can call him anytime. If he doesn't answer, he'll call me right back. He's running for re-election as well. And he's done some really good things in Frederick by not enforcing mask mandates, by not enforcing the gathering laws or edicts or whatever they want to call them, executive orders. But he was the only one that responded. And he said, we're having this meeting. It's out here. It's this time. Come out here because we wanted to speak to all the sheriffs. So we show up there. It's at an Elks Lodge in Frederick. And then we come down the hallway, and here comes Sheriff Troy Berry. He's the president of the Maryland Sheriff's Association. He comes out. He's like, what do you guys want? So we just want like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe to talk to all the sheriffs in here. We got some really great information. We want to remind them of their oath to office, their promise to God, and to the people in the Constitution to uphold and defend everybody's rights. And Sheriff Berry goes, no, we're not, you can't come in. And my brother immediately was like, that's BS, man. How about Open Meetings Act? Like, we have a right to be here. This is a public meeting, so you have to let us in. And then he starts stuttering and stammering on everything, and he's like, oh, well, okay, you can come in, but we're not going to let you speak. So it was like useless. So I go in, like I just leaned in the door and I'm seeing who's in there. I wanted to see how many sheriffs were there. Saw some deputies' uniforms, and then I see a whole slew of federal agents. And that was like, whoa, that backed me up right there. I was like, ATF, DEA, FBI. And I'm like, why are they here in a local meeting? Like, this is supposed to be the community of sheriffs, the chiefs of law enforcement getting together. So that raised a lot of hairs and a lot of questions for me. So I backed out of the room, but we stayed in the hallway. And we were just waiting for sheriffs to come out. Maybe we could talk to them, or Sheriff Jenkins had said to us, I'm going to prop you guys up during the meeting, see if I can get you some time at the end. Well, that didn't happen. But during the meeting, Sheriff Fisher goes out, and he goes to the bathroom. My brother taps me, he's like, hey man, it was Fisher. I was like, I know who it was. I'll get him when he comes back out. He comes back out of the bathroom. I walk up to him, shake his hand, put my hand out there, and I was like, Andy Kuhl, I'm from Baltimore County. I'm your constituent. And he asked me, how's everything going? I said, absolutely terrible, Sheriff. That's why I came all the way out here to talk to you. It took like an hour and 20 minutes to get there. And he literally just puts his hand up, smiles, and goes, okay. And then walks away from me. And I'm looking at my brother and my friend Sean. I'm like, what just happened? We elected this guy. This guy's the sheriff, and he literally walked away from his constituent. And that just, like, totally solidified it there at that point. I was like, I'm going to replace this guy, and I'm going to do the job for the people.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. I mean, you know, that's to me, our personal rights are what has been infringed upon the most during these trying times. Let me not knock my shit over. Mm-hmm. So what else do you have going on? Obviously, a question I've asked a few of the people that have come in are about the deputies. So sheriff's deputies, it doesn't really seem like they do much law enforcement.
No, not currently, and that's something that, thanks for asking that, because I really wanted to get into that point as well. There's a little history behind it before I say what the deputies are doing now. So it was like 100 years ago. The institution of the Maryland State Police and the Baltimore County Police. And I personally think that was all by design, to remove or relegate the authority of law enforcement away from the sheriff's office. Because, again, the sheriff is the law enforcement arm of the people. So they institute the Baltimore County Police, and then the Baltimore County Police gets a chief. And Chief Melissa Hyatt, I'm sure people have been on this show and mentioned her before.
Oh, yeah.
But I've backed up Dave Folderauer and Mike DeCara on their press releases back in March when Melissa Hyatt had voted against trial boards for police for their immunities. And I heard you say earlier today your dad is a retired police officer?
Yes.
Yeah, my dad was a city cop for 33 years in Southeast District. So I know about what law enforcement goes through on a daily basis. But I knew that this chief of police is appointed by a politician, and that politician is the county executive. She was appointed by Johnny O, and was the county executive's job primarily to control the budget of state facilities and agencies.
Yep.
So how in this would it ever work that this chief of police, Melissa Hyatt, is going to work for the people? She can't. She's beholden to her boss, who appointed her. So it's like, thank you very much for giving me the job. She's got one of the highest paid
I was about to
jobs.
say, I wonder how much they
$280,500 a year. That's how much Melissa Hyatt makes. And she does absolutely nothing but violate people's rights.
Oh my God! Anybody wins county executive and needs a sheriff, I'm your man.
There you go. You're definitely
chief, not
Yeah.
sheriff. You'll be the sheriff. I'll be the chief.
Well, I got plans for that. I won't reveal that today, but so she works for the county executive basically, and her budget's controlled by the county executive. So that's an indication for the people right there that you're not going to get unbiased law enforcement, because Johnny O's a politician. He's a Democrat, and that's fine. He's a Democrat, but that's only one side of the aisle. And we certainly know over the last at least 2 years, and really the 4 years that he was in office, raising taxes. He's not doing things for the people. He's doing things probably to line his own pockets. And the same thing applies to the Maryland State Police, but that's a state organization. So the chief is appointed by the governor. So again, where does it fall in that these heads of law enforcement actually work for the people?
Yeah, they got to work for their boss, and they get fired.
And I like to think that I had something to do with it, like when the FOP had their last press release a couple weeks ago, because I had some emails with them explaining this whole operation to them, and then they came out with this press release. Because I understand the way that part of government is structured and how we're not going to ever get results. And now the FOP asked for Johnny O to remove Melissa Hyatt. But it's just the fact that it is a state-controlled agency that it'll never get better. You could put a great chief in there, but they're still going to become slaves to the system of the way it's structured. And now this is why my father, who was a city police officer, never took a promotion. The only thing he did, for the most part, was acting OIC, officer in command. He never took the sergeant's job, the lieutenant's, commander, or anything like that, because he saw these guys get raised up, all these great police officers, and they got crushed by the system. They came in there like guns a-blazing. They're like, all right, I'm going to fix this for all the police that keep getting shit on by everybody, and, I'm going to do it for you guys, but then they're locked into that system. Kind of what we were talking about before is saying, that river's flowing of politics, and then most people that get into office, they just jump in it because it's too hard to go against the...
Right, they're not salmon, they're not strong enough. They got to get on that raft and ride the wave.
Yeah, and that's the importance of the sheriff, again, because it's the only elected law enforcement officer. There's no other.
Right.
And the sheriff actually predates the Constitution. I mean, everybody knows the story of, the kings of England and the sheriff of Nottingham, right? So the sheriff of Nottingham was known as the king's man, and he was the keeper of the shire. That's where the name sheriff comes from. He's the keeper of the shire. But when it came over to the United States, from common law in England, it kind of translated into more of a Robin Hood thing. Because the structure of government works, and this is totally askewed for most people, is you think the federal government is at the top and they tell us what to do, then it's the state government, then it's the local government, then it's the sheriff, then it's the people. But it's actually flipped upside down. And we lost the state government and then the federal government. And it doesn't work like that.
Are you cooking or something over there? Because this just can't. And we lost, we're back.
You got something stuck to your foot there.
All right, we're back, Andy.
Oh, okay. We're live again. Sweet.
Yeah.
Very.
I don't know where we left off, but I can go all night. It's my favorite thing to talk about because the county sheriff is really America's best kept secret.
Okay, here's a couple questions now.
Sure.
So number one, Bobby Heisler, already know who that is. What law enforcement experience do you have?
That's my favorite question. You want to know why? Because I don't have any. And you don't need it to run for sheriff. And I think this is the biggest benefit to my campaign for the people is because I am one of the people. I understand the office. I understand exactly what will be asked of me. And I want everyone to be completely educated on what the sheriff is exactly, his duties are, because I want you to hold me accountable. And I also want to have a reciprocal relationship to be the most available sheriff as well. I mean, back to...
You know that part.
Yeah, exactly. And back to Sheriff Chuck Jenkins of Frederick County, is like, I'm not his constituent, and he's still available to me. And that's the kind of relationship that I want with the people. Like phone calls, emails. My phone number is on my website. Anybody can call me or text me anytime they want.
What is that website?
It's kuhljustice.com. KUHLJUSTICE.com. You might not be able to see it there.
I got it. Thank you, Tim.
But yeah, I put all of my education for the people on my website. As I mentioned before, this common law handbook of what the sheriff's actually supposed to do, it goes into great length. It talks about precedents of other cases. It talks about federal laws that these sheriffs really should be enforcing on the people's behalf. So I know that was a roundabout answer to
Sure the hell was.
to your question, Bobby, but I do believe without law enforcement experience and without me being indoctrinated into that state-controlled agency, like we explained with Chief Melissa Hyatt, I think that's a great advantage for the people.
Okay, got another one. This is from Adam Reuter. It says, what are your thoughts on how Governor Hogan handled the pandemic?
Oh, another great question. So I think it was absolutely terrible and egregious to our rights the way Governor Hogan handled the pandemic. And I know people have mixed opinions on that, but I actually sued him. And I know there was another gentleman on your show before talking about a particular lawsuit that I filed. And it's not a widely known one, so I hope he's taking it off of my website and learning something from it. Again, on my website, this is where all this education is. So Governor Hogan filed so many executive orders, and executive orders are not law. So the executive can tell you to do something, but you don't have to comply with it. He's in the executive branch of government, and most people think that that's okay because he said to do that. But all legislative powers are vested in the legislature. The executive branch of government cannot make laws. The judicial branch of government cannot make laws. So all these executive orders are bona fide unconstitutional. So I sued him for it. I sued him for a violation of his oath of office, violation of closing down religious institutions and businesses, and it's very simple, 8-page lawsuit, and it's called writ of mandamus, and everybody can review it and you could do it yourself. I mean, I sued him without a lawyer. I did my research, I learned about the law and the Constitution, and I worked with my group that I mentioned before, the Patriots in Maryland, and we put this together, but I put my name on it, and I was right out in front because I knew everything that Hogan was doing was violating the people's rights.
All right. Another question, Alex Levine. I think I'm the one that said sign gate first. So remember that. I get the sign gate credit. All right. So what are your thoughts on sign gate?
Well, you're looking at one of the last signs of mine in existence. I only have a few left. I've had over $500 worth of signs taken, 4x8 banners that were hanging up on poles. They're $100 a piece. And these are a lot cheaper, but then you have the metal stakes that go in the ground as well. So someone's been taking my signs. I can't put a finger on it who's doing it.
Wait a minute, are you sure about that? I mean, I'm not an investigator or anything.
I don't have any photographic evidence.
Are you sure about that?
Or video evidence or anything like that, but I do have some inkling.
We're not Scooby in the gang over here, but anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, unfortunately, this is something that happens in politics quite often, but it's being exposed more now because it's happening to so many more candidates.
Yeah.
A lot of guys that I believe in and candidates for office that I think are going to do well for the people, they're the same ones who are getting their signs stolen as well, or defaced, cut up, or stomped on. I had one of my signs stomped on. This is crazy. This is the only person that I've door knocked at, and this guy knew everything about the sheriffs. And he and his wife pray for the county sheriffs, all 3,080 of them all over the nation every day. So we had a wonderful conversation, and it took him looking at my website and really vetting me and my position on county sheriff before he would accept a lawn sign. So I posted this on Facebook as well, just a snippet of the text message, and I think it was 4 days ago, and he says, somebody stomped your sign in my front yard. And this is private property, 15 feet into his property, and somebody stomped my sign. But he put it back up. But it's just a testament to how much I'm hated by whatever evil is controlling. Yeah, it is the establishment, and it could be Democrat, it could be Republican, it doesn't really matter. It's just evil behind it because they don't want my message to get out to the people. Because I will, as is on the front of my palm card, I will hold all of these elected officials accountable. And that's a good segue into the next thing, unless you got some more questions right now.
Nope, go ahead.
So the county sheriff has almost unbridled authority, but it's through the people. So the sheriff can actually arrest the president of the United States.
Is that right?
Yes. If you get an indictment from a grand jury of your peers, of the people's grand jury, which is called a petite grand jury, then you can make arrests of elected officials, state officers, and things like that. And why I'm saying the president of the United States is because still, and even with the county sheriffs, America's Last Hope, Sheriff Max Book, it proves in there in 1997 that the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer and the highest executive authority. So you could get an indictment and say Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they violated everybody's rights, they've committed treason or whatever the indictment's for, and you could issue a warrant for arrest. And is it ever going to happen realistically? Hell no. Everybody knows that. But legally, the sheriff can do that. It would probably end up with a shootout between Secret Service and the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
And it would have to be on the jurisdiction of the sheriff's county.
Right.
So she couldn't go into D.C. and make the arrest. It would have to be in their jurisdiction.
Right. That's pretty interesting. I mean, learning the power that the sheriff actually has, but what you're saying the most, what I'm hearing the most is for the people.
Absolutely.
So what, just because you came out with a story about your daughter and all that, has there been any kind of resolution to that?
We pulled her out to homeschool her because once we started looking more into schools and how they were violating our rights as parents and violating our rights of our child, then we started looking more into the curriculum and how we feel that all public school children are being violated by the curriculum that they're teaching in schools. And that's really a personal opinion, and everybody could have a different opinion on it, and that's fine. But it should be the right to choose. So homeschooling is the way I want to move forward with that, to combat that, unless I can make a real big difference as a parent in the Baltimore County public school system. Like, I testified there before, or spoke there. It's really ineffective the way they allow it. They give you 3 minutes to talk, and they don't say anything back to you. And then as soon as that 3-minute mark comes up, it's like, you're done, cut your mic. And I was just trying to explain the situation that you let me explain about her first day of first grade. And I never even got to finish it. It was like this abridged version that really didn't paint the full picture to them. And they wouldn't have cared anyway, because it's another bureaucratic institution. Darrell Williams is appointed by a politician for the superintendent.
Right.
Or elected by or he should be elected by the school board, but he's not. And then
He's appointed.
Yeah, he's appointed.
Another politician beholden to a politician.
Yep.
Basically. So we did mention about the sheriff's deputies, and some of these a few of these guys running for county executive, and I was really thinking about Henry Ziskowski, is using those sheriff's deputies in the schools so that the police. Let's be honest. Look, I love you guys, but come on, you guys don't really do that much. So instead of our police department, or are you planning something to get these deputies more involved in actual law enforcement?
Well, the deputies currently, there's only 74 of them right now, and all they do is protect the courts and serve warrants and evict people out of their homes lawfully. But they should be doing a lot more, and they know that they can do a lot more, but they're not getting the backing of the sheriff. They're actually made fun of by the Baltimore County Police Department, and from what I've heard, reports that I've heard, and that's just absolutely terrible, because it's the flip-flop that people think that the authority rests within the police force, but it's actually within the sheriff's deputies. I do want to ultimately protect schools. And I want to take that gun-free zone sticker off the front of schools and stop advertising that anybody can walk in there with a gun and shoot our kids. Like, I think that is one of the dumbest things that we have going on right now.
Campaign.
Yeah, like gun-free zone. No, I would feel more comfortable if my child was in public school, that I had somebody like fully tacked down and just being that bastion, that defense for the kids there.
Yeah, if you come into school guns a-blazing, you're going down quicker than mama.
Yeah, and there's so many other sheriffs around the nation that are actually exercising their authority and making comments about what happened in Uvalde. Sheriff Grady Judd of Florida, he literally said, you're going to be, I think, funeral home dead or cemetery dead. We will shoot you in the head if you try to mess with our kids. And that's the message that I'm going to be conveying to the parents, to try to put their minds to ease as well, is that I really want to ramp up the sheriff's department like no one's ever seen. Now, it's like restoring it to its honor 100 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty sad when you can't even let your kids, or you can't feel safe allowing your kids to go to school and get an education because some wacko is going to come in there and start blasting.
Yeah. They have to be protected. That's our future. I mean, that's our most sacred thing in the world, is our children. If without them, we have no future of this country whatsoever. And I do believe that it is a direct attack on our children by design, whether it's the indoctrination by the education, their curriculum in school, or the distraction from them learning this, the United States Constitution. We don't teach this in schools anymore. We don't teach the Maryland Constitution. They don't even teach us in law school anymore. Believe it or not, you get, I think, 6 months to your first semester. It's either first and second semester, or the first semester you get constitutional law. The rest is statutory law, which does not apply to people. And that's another thing found in the common law handbook, is these statutory laws are really designed to limit state officers, elected officials, and those laws apply to them, and the Constitution is for the people.
And it doesn't seem like the portion that relates to our politicians, nobody's doing crap with that.
No, not at all. And that's why they have to be held accountable, because they're either completely ignorant to the laws that they're supposed to follow, or they just think they're above the law.
Yeah, they just don't care.
Yeah.
And I think I have to believe that a lot of it is that they just, they're high on the hog now. You know what I mean? They're getting that paycheck. They're up. There we go. What is LEOB? Whatever the hell. Okay, so
that's the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. Okay. And thanks for asking that.
Well, let me read. Bobby said, "What is your opinion on the recent changes to what the hell is that again?"
Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights.
Okay.
I commented on this before, talking about backing the FOP up with Chief Melissa Hyatt back in March. So they made a press release at that point, Dave Falderauer again, saying that they are denouncing Chief Melissa Hyatt for voting against the trial board of the current Baltimore County Police. Now, that was the vote that she made was taking their constitutional right to due process away. So literally, if they were thought to have act outside their bounds, or even if they did something right, but they're being sued for it or something like that, then the police department, instead of having a trial board of their superiors and their peers in law enforcement, they could be immediately removed from the Baltimore County Police Force with no trial, with no explanation of what they did. And more in depth of the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights is what the legislature repealed back in October of last year. So I've mentioned just a part of that before is if an officer acts unlawfully or acts lawfully, he is civilly liable for it personally. So it used to be they had representation from their local jurisdiction or the state that they would provide an attorney to defend them for whatever the case is. But they've taken that away from the police now.
Wow, that's terrible.
It is. So why would the police want to enforce a law?
Or why would you even want to be a police officer if you don't even have the government that you work for backing you?
Yeah, that's why morale is an all-time low. And I'm certainly, when I'm elected, going to be encouraging all Baltimore County police officers to come work with me, because I'm going to do the right thing for you. But these rights that are being taken away from the police, they're demoralizing, that it is driving officers away. I think just today, 100 officers resigned from the Baltimore County Police Department.
Wow.
It keeps thinning the herd. So how are we supposed to enforce these laws? How are we supposed to protect the kids in school? How are we supposed to do any of this?
When the police can't even do their job.
Exactly.
They're not allowed. Now listen, everybody has rights, I get that, and I don't want anybody to be hurt unlawfully. But the police aren't even allowed to do their jobs anymore.
No, they're not. And it's a crime. I mean, and like, people need to be held accountable.
And we're police kids.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, in Dundalk, when I was a kid, all the police lived in the neighborhood.
Yep.
They lived in Edgemere or Dundalk or Essex. They were part of the community, and you knew them every day. And that's not really good for guys like us that dads but it was a safe feeling.
Yeah, it was.
So we got something. Here we go. Is Baltimore County Sheriff constitutionally responsible for Baltimore County Jail? And that's from Wink, Big Steve Winkler. What's up, Wink?
I actually grew up with the Winkler family. Good friends with them. Small world, as we were saying.
Wink's
before.
in the movie.
Yeah. Oh, is he?
Yeah, but forget about that. We'll talk about that later.
But yeah, they actually took the constitutional power away from the sheriff's office, and I think this was back before Sheriff Fisher. I heard the story on this recently, but I can't really recall the entire thing. But they did take the jail away from it. So other counties, other than Baltimore County, like in Harford County, they exercise the law enforcement arm of the sheriff's office. The jail as well, they take care of that. They have the warden. and they also do the constitutional rights and just like traffic violations, everything.
Right.
So in Baltimore County, it's most certainly not like that at all. But the sheriff has the constitutional authority to reclaim all of that. So as long as I have enough deputies and I have enough funding, and I have a plan for that, but I can certainly make those changes and bring that back to Baltimore County.
Well, that really does sound amazing, and our sheriff's department does have a rich history. It's just right now, it's like that. You know, if you have like that superfluous nipple, that doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got the government, the police department, and down here is the sheriff's department. So hopefully that's something we can change. And you know, for us, you know, the people, we need a sheriff that is going to do what his job is, and that's to protect us and to protect our rights. And I'm excited to hear, you know, that we have somebody that actually gives a damn about the people. Is there anything else you want to say, or any other part of your platform you want to get out to the folks?
Well, it is education. You know, that's my whole platform, and knowledge is power. I think that's the biggest movement that's growing in the country right now, especially in Maryland and hopefully more in Baltimore County. But I think knowledge of all of the laws and all of the duties and responsibilities of the elected officials or representatives that we have in office, if we know what they're supposed to do, then we can hold their feet to the fire. And if we know the U.S. Constitution, this is a very short read. I encourage anyone to, you know, get a copy. You can go to instituteontheconstitution.com or the American View. Yeah, the American View. It's an organization that I've associated myself with to learn all of these things. You can take a course on it. They give you PDFs, and there's a test at the end, and you really feel empowered after doing that. And one thing I really want to bring up, because we were talking about before the federal government and the hierarchy of authority, and how I was saying the federal government's actually on the bottom, but everybody perceives them to be on the top. So in the U.S. Constitution, in the first article, Section 8, it enumerates the 18 powers that the government has, the federal government, that we instituted as people. And if you read all of these 18 powers, not one of them says that they can control the people in any manner. So I mentioned before unconstitutional laws, these pretended legislations, and how the sheriff can make them unenforceable. Can you think of anything that you might think is infringing on your right?
Oh my God, so many things but you know, mostly I feel like over the past 3 years is more than ever with the COVID virus and everything, that we were being violated the most.
Yeah.
In my life, and I know that there's other ethnicities and races that definitely have been violated, but for everyone, even whitey, this has been the worst.
Yeah.
You know, with the vaccines and saying, well, you can't come to work if you don't do this, and with the masks and yeah.
Well, I actually lost my career because of that. I mean, I didn't do any background. Maybe I should do that now. Yeah, at the end. But I'm just a regular guy, blue collar worker. I've worked with my hands my entire life, and I think that's also a benefit to my campaign, is because that I'm a problem solver. It's like I get something broken put before me, or I have to build something to make something out of whatever we're creating. And I think those skills and working with my hands and my mind all the time is going to be such a benefit to the people, because what I'm trying to do, my vision is to restore our constitutional republic as our country was founded, on Judeo-Christian principles, on the law, not pretended legislation, on the law, which is the U.S. Constitution, the supreme law of the land. A little more of the background is, I am a dad, and I'm still a blue-collar worker. I drive a jockey truck full of chemicals every day. So it's nothing too exciting. We mentioned that I wasn't in law enforcement before. I do my own podcast as well on Twitch, and that's where I do more education. I actually interview federal whistleblowers too, a couple of them that I've interviewed. I don't know if you guys know who Lynn Wood is. Have you heard of Lynn Wood? He's this defamation attorney, but he had this guy on that took his testimony one time. His name's John McGreevy, and he's running for U.S. Senate. I mentioned him before the show, and I really wanted to dive into that part. So first I'm going to say the website, kuhljustice.com, KUHLJUSTICE.com. That's where most of this information, the knowledge that you're going to gain from my campaign, so you can learn how to hold your elected officials accountable, learn how to hold me accountable. Please get that knowledge, soak it up on my website, and towards the bottom, I have a lot of videos from my podcast as well. So my friend John and I, we did an interview on this yesterday with Richard, citizen journalist. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a pretty big persona who's been out there fighting for people's rights, filming hospitals, saying they're empty, there's nobody with COVID in here. So he's got quite a following, like 300,000 people. But what we were talking about yesterday in that interview is undercover investigations that we've done, and is in Harford County, and we exposed a child trafficking ring that actually goes across 26 states.
Holy shit.
Yeah, this goes way deeper than we ever thought it would. There has been some personal backlash. I have to do like counter surveillance when I leave my house all the time because we know the bad guys saw the video. But it's just really a testament to how I'm getting involved in every possible way to do something. One, to save the kids. That's first and foremost. I am a father. And two, to protect their rights. So this trafficking ring that we expose is a digital system, and like I said, you can go to my website, you can watch the few public outcry videos that we've done to it, because we've taken it to law enforcement and we've gotten no results. We went to Harford County in that jurisdiction, took it to law enforcement. They conducted an investigation, found everything that we were saying was credible, but they couldn't go any further with it. So they turned it over to federal agents, and we haven't heard anything from them. But we know they're involved, at least. So that is like the biggest point of my campaign related to that small portion of the child trafficking rings that we've exposed, is that why couldn't local law enforcement complete this investigation? Are they inept? Did they not have the equipment? Why did we need to get the federal agents involved in it? And everybody has their own opinion about how federal agencies handle cases, and especially big things like this. So I'd rather not have them involved in our county, because I know our county. I was born and raised here, lived here my entire life, 37 years. I know my county, my community, and I know how to represent them. I don't want the federal agents. I'm not going to sign off unless we absolutely need to, or work with them in tandem on interstate crime or something like that. And I also want to restore the sheriff's office to not be inept, to have all the right equipment, all the right people. I have people literally lined up, and they live out of state. Some people out of state, some people out of Baltimore County, that say, when you get elected, I will move to Baltimore County just to work for you, because you know I'm going to do, or because they know I'm going to do the job for the people. And that's what it says on the back of my palm card, is after I asked everybody for a donation on it. But if I can't be your county sheriff, I hope to be a sheriff that can inspire all 3,080 sheriffs across the nation.
Wow, I love your message. One more time with the website.
Sure, thank you. KuhlJustice.com. It's KUHLJUSTIC.com.
And I want to thank you for coming on. It's hot as hell in here. I'm poor. I ain't got no air conditioning.
Oh, yeah, it's right down my back.
But I do appreciate you, Andy, coming in. I love your vibe, man, and mostly I love the fact that what you care about most is the rights of the people, and that's what it's all about. And I hope to have you on again when you're elected. Or maybe before we can throw
Before?
some
Well,
trash at somebody.
I am the Republican nominee, so I already won the primary.
Oh, you're already the guy.
Yeah, I had my opponent back out on April Fool's Day. So, like, I thought that was a joke, honestly, but it turns out it wasn't. So I did win the nomination, so my election will be in November 8th. You can still vote for me on July 19th, but I'm the only one in the sheriff's box if you're a Republican.
Well, there you go. Come November 18th, go ahead and get on Andy's website. Check him out. You already heard what he's all about. And hopefully when November 19th comes around, or maybe, 18th at 11:59, and then there you'll be raising your hands and
I'm hoping so, because, I mean, I'm just like the founding fathers in saying this. I'm ready to sacrifice my life, my property, my sacred honor for this country and for the people of Baltimore County.
All right, thanks for coming, everybody. We got some more people coming up. Watch out on my Facebook account to find out who, when, and what time and all that good stuff. I want to thank Andy Kuhl again for coming in, and I want to thank Tim Ledard and even Jimmy sitting over there sweating, relaxing by himself. My two producers, thank you guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Johnny Laing Show.
Thanks.